Please be advised that following this training session, a brief survey will be posted in the chat. We would ask and appreciate before you leave the session that you complete the survey. We will also provide you with a reminder at the end of the session. Good afternoon. My name is Heather Johnpillay. I'm a project manager for Ginny May. The team would like to welcome you to the RFS expanded data. Next slide, please. The team will be presenting today the expanded data collection project. We're doing the expanded data manual training. We've got some examples at the end. Next slide, please. The team will be going through the expanded data collection project. The team that will be presenting today is Christy Christensen and Debbie Bowles. What we're doing is we're walking through what's been provided in the APM 24-03. All issuers are expected to deliver the new data elements effective September 1st. What the change is that's going into production on September 1 is that we're adding 11 new loan level data elements and updating the reason codes in the RFS monthly reporting. Just to give you a bit of background, we've completed all the testing. 100% of issuers were covered by the testing. The training for all issuers will be held today, the 22nd of August, and again next week on August the 28th. Live reporting, to reinforce, is starting September 1, 2024. Next slide, please. The data that's going to be submitted for the September 1 date is the August data. Please be aware that the two various fields are required for single family and manufactured housing for the August data. That would be field 26 is servicer and subservicer ID. The field 27 is the document custodian. For multi-family issuers, we only require the field 26, and that's the servicer subservicer ID. If you're a service bureau, please communicate and coordinate with your vendor to ensure, if you're using a service bureau, please coordinate with your vendor to ensure you are prepared and you are submitting to the new file format. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of where we've come from through the different testing phases. We've had 99% of our issuers completed testing. That's an amazing effort, so thank you very much for all of those that were involved. We're finalising at this point. Production readiness is on track. September 1, here we come. We've got data submission happening starting September 1 with the business day 4 still the requirement for submission of the fields. Next slide, please. The resources, we've mentioned the training. Please pre-register for the training on the 28th. The link is here embedded in the slide. There are 4 quick reference cards, the RFS loan activity for the loan records with the expanded data. You've got the various records for single family and manufactured housing issuer program members, and you've got the various records quick reference card for the multifamily issuers. The service fee calculation is an additional quick reference card providing some detail around the service fee calculation. The Appendix 619 will be published on September the 1. Please make sure that you do download that Appendix 619, read it and or print it out to keep it as a reference document. You'll notice that there's references here for the RFS loan level fields of pages 21 to 26, and the rules for the reporting of various records are on page 36. Next slide, please. At this point, I'll hand over to Christy Christensen. Thank you very much, team.
Thanks, Heather. First, we will discuss 4 slides with single family and then 4 slides with multifamily. Then Debbie will show 3 examples. Today, we are going to start by going over the changes in the removal reason codes for single family and manufactured housing, which is field 25 of the L record. You will notice that code 2 has changed from repurchase of delinquent to buyout of delinquent loan. This code will apply when an issuer has used its funds to buy out a loan from the pool as a result of a delinquency and per Chapter 18, Part 3B of the MBS Guide. Code 3 has been updated from the foreclosure with claim payment to foreclosure with or without claim payment. Code 6 has been updated from other to other removal. Code 7 has been added for special assistance. This code applies when special assistance programs announced by Ginnie Mae per Chapter 34 of the MBS Guide. I believe that Code 7 will be like Code 6 and require Ginnie Mae written approval. Next slide, please. Here we see a screenshot of the additional fields in RFS for single-family fixed-rate and manufactured housing. Issuers are now required to report the scheduled amounts for each loan, which is field 30, 31, and 32. Issuers will also be required to report the gross service fee collected in field 33 and the actual payment date in field 34. The actual payment date is the date that the payment was posted. If you are reporting a last payment date in field 12, you would need to report the actual payment date in field 34. Please remember that if you collect a payment and you report installment interest, you should have a gross service fee amount collected. If you do not collect a payment and therefore are not reporting installment interest, then you will not have a gross service fee amount collected to report. For how RFS calculates the gross service fee collected amount, please see the gross service fee amount collected QRC link at the bottom of the page. Field 35 is the curtailment principal code, which has 4 available choices defined in Appendix 619. If the curtailment principal code is reported, then a curtailment amount should be reported in field 20, which is just to the right. Also, if a curtailment amount is reported, then the curtailment principal code should be reported. Next slide, please. Here we see the RFS screenshot for single-family ARM loans. You will see the same added fields, and then you will also notice 3 extra fields. So field 36, 37, and 38 all need to be reported in RFS once the information is available in the reporting period. See Appendix 619 for more details. Next slide, please. Next, we will drop down to the various fields. So field 26 is the servicer/subservicer ID that will be the issuer ID of the entity submitting the reporting for the reporting period. If you have a subservicer, then that will be their issuer ID in this field. If you are submitting the reporting yourself, then this will be your company's 4-digit issuer ID. Various field 27 is the document custodian, which is the 6-digit document custodian number for the loan. You may also find this number on your 11705 and 11706 as long as your company has not changed document custodians since the pool was issued. Also, this would be the same document custodian number that you would use on your 11708 to request the documents back from the custodian. If you do not know who your document custodian is, please check with your internal capital markets, secondary marketing team, or final documents team, as they should be able to tell you who they are using as the document custodian. And as Heather mentioned earlier, for August 2024 reporting, which is September calendar month, Ginnie Mae is expecting various fields 26 and 27 be reported for all active loans in RFS. Then beginning September 2024 reporting and going forward, report these two fields for new securitized loans and any changes. There could be many reasons for changes. An example of a change for field 26 would be if the issuer changes from a subservicer to in-house servicing. And then an example of a change for field 27 would be if the issuer changes document custodians. Next slide. Now we will go over the multifamily section with the 4 slides. So for the multifamily removal reason codes, which is field 25 of the L record, Code 2 has been updated from repurchase of delinquent loan to buyout of delinquent loan. Code 3 has been updated from foreclosure with claim payment to foreclosure with or without claim payment. Finally, Code 6 has been updated from other to other removal. Code 7 is not available in this dropdown as it does not apply to multifamily loans. Next slide, please. The multifamily project loans will now have the new scheduled fields, the gross service fee amount collected, actual payment date, and curtailment principal code. Issuers are now required to report the scheduled amounts for each loan, which is field 30, 31, and 32. Issuers are also required to report the gross service fee collected in field 33 and the actual payment date in field 34. The actual payment date is the date that the payment was posted. If you are reporting a last installment paid date in field 12. Please remember that if you collect a payment and you report installment interest, you should have a gross service fee amount collected. If you do not collect a payment and therefore are not reporting installment interest, you will not have a gross service fee amount collected to report. Field 35 is the curtailment principal code, which has 4 available choices defined in Appendix 619. If the curtailment code is reported, then the curtailment amount should be reported in field 20, which is just to the right. Also, if the curtailment amount is reported, then a curtailment principal code should be reported. Next slide, please. Multifamily construction loans will have the new curtailment principal code in field 35, the gross service fee amount collected in field 33, and the actual payment date in field 34. Next slide. Both project loans and construction loans will have various field 26 servicer-subservicer ID. Please be aware that starting in September with the August reporting, all active loans will be required to have the servicer-subservicer field populated in RFS. After the initial reporting in September, those fields will be required to be populated when there's a change in the servicer or and on all new securitized loans. I'll now turn it over to Debbie.
Thank you, Christy. Now we're going to go over some examples. So next slide, please. Here are the 6 exceptions that'll appear if the new fields are not populated in RFS. For clarification on any of the new fields, see the current version of Appendix 619 for the complete definitions. These are critical exceptions and will need to be cleared by the 4th business day, 7 p.m. Eastern Time deadline. Clearing any of the new exception is the same process that you do today. These can be cleared by either going into RFS and manually updating the fields or by uploading a file with the data populated in these fields. Next slide, please. On this screen, we have used an amortization schedule to help with the scheduled amounts. For training purposes, we are using May of 2018 as the current reporting period. In this example, we can see that the borrower made their May 2018 payment. You can see that the scheduled amounts are filled with the June 2018 scheduled UPB in yellow, scheduled monthly principal amount in orange, and the scheduled monthly interest amount in purple. The gross service amount collected in green is on the next slide. The borrower made their May 2018 payment on May 4th. Therefore, the actual payment date is reported as May 4th, 2018. Also, the long blue box shows a curtailment principal code populated as there is a $100 curtailment reported. Next slide, please. The gross service fee amount collected should be reported in RFS directly from your servicing system and not calculated for RFS reporting purposes. This example is showing the gross service fee amount collected calculation per Appendix 6-19. You can see that you start with the installment interest in the red box. This means that if you collected a payment, you will have a gross service fee amount collected to be reported in RFS. You will also need the security interest rate and the loan interest rate for your calculation from the purple box. To calculate, take the installment interest times the service fee rate, which is the loan interest rate minus the security interest rate, then divide by the loan interest rate to get this gross service fee amount collected in the green box. Next slide, please. This example shows a borrower that is 1 month prepaid. You will notice that the reported installment principal and interest amounts, prepaid principal and interest amounts, and the closing UPB match the scheduled amounts in the middle of the RFS screen. Because this borrower is prepaid, then the gross service fee amount collected in green is still based on the installment interest reported. Also, this borrower did not make a curtailment with this payment. Therefore, a curtailment principal code is not reported. And also, this borrower made the actual payment on May 8, 2018. Next screen, please. For our last training example, it's a delinquent loan where the issuer did not collect a payment. The loan is 2 months delinquent, but Jenny Mae is still looking for the June data in the scheduled fields per the AM schedule. You'll notice that since a payment was not collected, gross service fee amount collected is not reported in the green highlight. We also notice that there is not an actual payment date. This is incorrect and generates an exception. You would want to give the actual payment date of the last installment date. If there is a last installment date reported, Jenny Mae is looking for actual payment date that the last payment was received. Therefore, actual payment date should be a current reporting month date or a date in the past. This should not ever be a future date. Since the borrower is delinquent and no payment or curtailment was collected during the reporting period, a curtailment principal code is not reported in RFS. And just a last quick note, please ensure that you download or print the current version of Appendix 619 with a date of September 1st, 2024 in the bottom left corner. This will help you with reporting and understanding the definitions of all fields in RFS. And I will now turn it back to Heather.
Thank you very much, Christy and Debbie. That was great. I even learnt, which is good to hear. Our session today covered the manual entry for the new data elements, as well as some examples. This content will be saved to the website, and links will be distributed via the bulletin through My Jenny Mae. We've got a couple of different things that are going on for the next week. The manual entry training next week is going to be a second session if you wanted to come back and reinforce your learning, or if you had different members of the team that needed to undertake the training. We've got a go live on 9/1. We've got the Appendix 619 being published, and we've also got a mod bulletin being published. Next slide, please. There are 3 ways to raise your questions. The first one, if you're dialed in from your computer, you can raise your hand, which is on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. In the window, I don't see it on my screen, but it's there. So please make sure that when you're called upon by the host, you can actually unmute yourself. If you've dialed in from your phone, please press 9 and we will call out the last 4 digits of your phone number. Again, to unmute on your phone, it'll be *6 before you start speaking. If you're typing a question in the Q&A box, I notice we've got some questions there. It'll be great if we could get some answers to them. If not, we'll follow up offline. But again, please feel free to continue the questions. We do have a question here that asks whether we could show slide number 20 again. Lisette, did you want to come off mute and ask your question? Okay. If that's the case, I'll hand it over to Renee JustBuddy to facilitate the questions.
Thanks, Heather. If we can go back to the Q&A slide really quick. Just want to reinforce what Heather just mentioned as we kick off the Q&A session, that a lot of times folks do ask whether or not the presentation is published on the website, and it has not yet been published, but it will be. in the coming days. And once it is published, you will receive an My Ginny Mae portal message as well as an notification to let you know that the presentation has been published, as well as the recording of today's presentation. So don't fret, it may not be out there right now, but everything will be posted by next week. There are 3 different ways that you can ask your questions. You can raise your hand by selecting the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen, by the reactions annotation. And then again, you can dial *9 on your phone to raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute yourself once the moderator has called on you. Or you can type your question, as some of you have already begun doing, in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please do not ask any of your questions in the chat box, because we are not able to monitor those questions after the call has ended. And we want to make sure that we're able to get to all of your questions, whether or not it's during the call or after it has ended. So I will go ahead and ask some questions, and we'll allow the subject matter experts and Heather from Ginny Mae to answer your all's questions. Kelly, or before I go to the Q&A box, I'll ask our moderator if there are any hands raised on the phone.
Yes, we have Susan Skillen with her hand raised. So I will unmute you right now, and you can go ahead and unmute on your end as well and ask your question.
Do you know when Ginny Mae will update the 11708 release of document forms to have the new reason code and the new wording?
Heather, do you happen to have that answer?
I will actually take that as an action.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Susan.
That's all right. I submitted it to Ask Ginny Mae and they didn't seem to know. And and so I'm just kind of confused if we're supposed to be using the new words, then I mean, it's on our forms, but I didn't see it in Ginny Mae's site.
Right. Well, I mean, even if the verbiage isn't updated, I mean, you as long as the form is not expired, you're still able to use the current form, and like I said, on code 7 is really going to be like code 6, and Ginny Mae's pretty much going to tell you when code 7 will need to be used, so it's not like you're really going to start using, a ton of code 7s for August reporting.
Yes, correct.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Susan.
Okay. Are there any other hands raised on the call, Sarah?
Nope, no hands currently raised.
Okay. So we'll go to the Q&A box now. And the first question comes from Kelly Dake. And she just says, thank you for the clarification. Next is from Liz Parent. And her question is, with loans that were delivered in the reporting month, do we need to report the last installment date, an actual payment date for the stub initial interest, or should we leave these fields blank?
So for the stub initial interest, no, we are not looking for the actual payment date and last installment date for those, for that exact situation. We are looking for a full P&I scheduled payment, like per the AM schedule, is what Ginny Mae is looking for the first payment to be reported in RFS. And then the actual payment date that goes along with that last installment paid date. Does that answer your question, Liz?
You can just give us a thumbs up, Liz, if that answers your question.
Oh, thank you, Renee.
No problem.
I forget about those cool little thumbs.
Okay, so if it does answer your question, give us a thumbs up. And if it doesn't, please expound on the question a little
yes,
bit.
I saw the thumb.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next question is from Lisette Diaz. I love your beginning. Hi. Well, hello to you, Lisette. Okay, so you would like to show, you wanted to see slide 20 again, and we Heather did go ahead and do that as we kicked it off. Okay. Our next question comes from Saul. Saul wants to know, will they be able to submit a test file prior to the September go live date?
So Saul, would you be able to come off of mute and maybe explain a little bit more? Because we've already completed all of the testing.
Okay.
Sarah, do you have to unmute him? It looks like he's unmuted.
Yep, I unmuted Saul, so if you unmute on your end as well, you could ask your question. If not, you could also type it in the Q&A box.
Okay. And Sarah, we can barely hear you again.
All right. So other than Saul's question in the Q&A box, there are no other questions that I see here. So
Thank you very much, Renee. So we only have a few minutes left.
I'm
so
sorry, Heather.
I'm
One more question just came through from Newbar
Okay.
Adam. Yep. And the question is, so if Newbar enters a 500,000 versus a 5 million, it would generate an exception?
His previous question was if those scheduled fields were calculated, or if he put a 0 in there, would it generate an exception? And I had responded, no, they are not calculated. If you put a 0 in there, it will generate an exception. And that is the same scenario. If you get an extra 0 in there, yes, it will generate an exception.
Thank you, Debbie. And it looks like we have one more hand raised on the phone.
Mario, you should be able to unmute and ask your question.
Thank you. I wasn't sure whether their time limit hit or not, so that's why I lowered it for a second. My question is regards to the last full payment date that's required, I believe, not the P&I payment that's on the screen provided, but the last full payment date of the loan when delivered. It is my understanding that if that is blank, it may be an exception that comes out, and wanted to get some clarification.
Okay, so if you securitize a loan this month for, August, during the August calendar month. And so if it's a brand new loan and their first payment on the loan is 9/1 for September 1st, right?
Right.
So if they make their payment, so if they're prepaid, let's say they made
Right.
their payment today, then Jenny Mae would be looking for a last installment paid date of 9/1, and then an actual payment date of August 22nd. And then you would report the installment principal and interest and lower the closing UPB because you received the payment, right?
Right.
So does that answer your question, or do you have a follow-up question?
It answers part of it. So let me follow up with we do a lot of MSR transfers, and in those transfers, we may or may not get a last full payment date, even though it's a seasoned pool. What would happen in those cases?
So if you have a seasoned loan, and you're specifically talking about the last installment paid field?
Correct.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Last full payment date field.
Okay. What do you mean last full payment date? I don't know what that means.
I think there is a field, last full payment date, and I don't have the field, the location. I believe it is in the variable listing.
Okay, you cut out there for a second.
Sorry.
What was that, Mario?
why don't I do this? Let me gather more information on that one, because I've been looking at the last full payment date as being the a trigger for some data that I'm missing, and so I'm trying to confirm where that would go. So, Christy,
Okay.
would you mind if I reach out to you afterwards with more detail?
That's totally fine. So
Okay, all right.
you can do that, and then I will open a ticket and then answer your question, or or if you want to submit it to the AskJennyMay at HUD.gov.
Okay,
Either
I can.
is totally fine, Mario.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I will do that. I didn't. I have the information in my head, but not in my screens. So thank you.
That's okay. No problem. I understand.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I believe there. All right, so I don't see any other questions in the Q&A box, but can we go back to slides 20 to correct some terminology? And I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to the team so that they can provide some clarity around some terminology that may have been miscommunicated either on this slide or slide 21.
Well, I think what Valera was saying to help Mario. We could go back in if this screen would help. But Valera, I don't know for sure if he's talking about the actual field in RFS or a field in his servicing system. So Mario's, he's fine to, but great idea, Valeria. Thank you.
Okay, Heather, I'll turn everything back over to you.
Perfect. I see that Esther has actually asked for more detail on slide 21. And Kavita, I believe the question about resubmitting another test file had actually been answered based on Saul's original question that he couldn't ask because of his issues with his mic. So I believe that the testing the test production site was set up for May data. So the testing will actually finish tomorrow based on the May data. Please, Christy or Debbie or Mike, jump in if you're able to process anything other than what you've already processed, given that you're about to bring the environment down.
Mike, I will totally leave that up to you.
Oh, so Heather is correct in how she answered it, Saul and Kavita. But if there is something you want to test, is there a way Saul or Kavita can reach out to us, Heather, that we can try to help them figure out what their problem is and work with them if it's even possible? Like you said, it really depends on what they want to test.
Okay, so we can actually pick up Saul's and Kavita's emails. I believe, Sarah, is that correct? And we can
Yes.
dialogue with them directly. Thank you very much. Okay, let's take an action on that then.
All right, and it looks like we have another hand raised on the call.
Yes, Esther, if you unmute yourself, you should be able to ask your question.
So my question was on slide 21 on a delinquent loan. If no payment is received, do we place a date in the actual payment date or not?
So what is on the screen here, this is the part that is actually not correct on the screen. So it shows that the actual payment date is blank, or that it has the ILMDD right, Esther?
Correct,
So,
yes.
okay, so if you were reporting this, RFS would generate an exception because you do not have an actual payment date. Jenny Mae is looking for the actual payment date to be reported that correlates to the last installment date that is 2 fields above it as the 3-1. So if the paid their 3-1 payment, say on March 24th of 2018, then Jenny Mae would be looking for the actual payment date of March 24th of 2018 for every month that you were reporting them delinquent.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Jenny Mae is looking, so the actual payment date field and the last installment date field go hand in hand. If you're reporting a blank in the last installment date field, it should be a blank or the MMDDYYYY in the actual payment date field.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Thank
Or
you.
if you're reporting a date in the last installment date field, Jenny Mae is looking for a date. Like in when Debbie gave the example, we would be looking for either a current reporting month date or a date in the past, because that date should not ever be a future date.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Okay.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
And
Thanks,
Christy, since you're actually talking delinquent loans, Peggy's actually got a question for you. If we
Okay.
have a new loan and the borrower never made a payment, so they would never have, they would never have an actual payment. So what would the last installment date, the last installment date would be blank.
Correct. So if the last installment date is blank or an MMDDYYYY, then we would be looking for the exact same thing in the actual payment date field.
Does that answer your question, Peggy?
You can give us a thumbs up. Yep, just saw a
we've
thumb.
got that.
Perfect.
And Lisette has also got a question here. So it will be the date the last payment was received regardless of the cycle. E.g., a borrower made his last payment the previous cycle and did not make a payment during this current cycle. So that would be yes, right, Christy?
Correct. Correct. So like if you were reporting, you know, in this example that we're looking at, this is May of 2018 data. So if they did not make a payment during the month of April or May, then the actual payment date should be like March 24th, if that's the payment that correlates to the last installment paid date of March 1st.
Does that answer your question, Lisette? Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I don't see any more questions in the box. Sarah, do you see anything?
Yes, we have Daniel Garcia with their hand raised. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Daniel, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, please feel free to put your question in the Q&A box.
We also have Sean Bradley. And if you want to come off mute and ask your question, you should be able to now.
Hi, Sean. Okay, we've got another person challenged with their mute, or our systems are challenged.
Okay, third time's a charm. We have Anita. Can you come off mute and ask your question?
Hey, Sarah, how are these attendees asking questions? If they're from their phone, we just need to send a reminder to dial *6 on your phone to unmute yourselves. And if you're trying to ask your question aloud from the actual webinar itself, you'll just need to unmute yourself by selecting the mute unmute button all the way to the far bottom left hand of your screen. So if you're able to do so, please do. And if you are not, please submit your question to the askjennymay@hud.gov mailbox. Or because we do have a few more minutes of the call left over, you can put your question in the Q&A box. So Sarah, do we have any folks on the phone that are trying to ask a question?
Nope, these are all via the computer.
Okay. So it sounds like some folks are having some minor technical difficulties. So for those of you, again, who are unable to unmute yourselves right now, please feel free to send your question to the askjennyme@hud.gov mailbox, and someone from the project team will answer your question for you. They'll get back to you to help you figure out whatever it is that you're trying to get figured out. And before I pass things back over to Heather, I'm sorry, was there someone trying to talk?
Yeah, sorry, Renee. I do see that Christy Dempsey has her hand raised.
Okay.
Do we want to try her, Sarah?
Yes.
See if it'll work. Oh, no, I don't see her hand raised. Maybe she accidentally raised it.
Okay, no worries. Before I do pass things back over to Heather to close, I do want to remind folks to please oh, no problem, Christy. Apparently it was an accident. So Sarah, if you could please drop the link to the post-training survey in the chat for everyone. Folks, we'd love for you to go ahead and select the link to our post-training survey that Sarah has just populated in, or just published or posted into the chat. If you all wouldn't mind to select that link and provide your feedback for today's training session. We really value and appreciate all the feedback that you all provide, whether it's good, I don't want to say bad, or indifferent. Or if you have any additional questions that you would like asked, you can feel there's a section in the survey that you can type out additional information, but please do select the link for the survey. We're looking forward to hearing from you, and I will pass things back over to Heather to close us out.
Thank you very much, Renee. And thank you very much for all of the questions that we raised, as well as the team's effort in trying to wrangle all the questions and getting answers. So again, remember to follow through on the survey, and we do appreciate all candid comments that we get, as well as follow up for any components of the training that you would like more detail on. Remember the askjennyme@hud.gov. That should be your best friend whenever you're actually working through any of the functionality. Reminder about the next the training session, the second training session, which is next week on Wednesday. And a final reminder, don't forget to download the new Appendix 619 starting on 9/1, or if you go to the prior APMs, you'll be able to download the copy, the pre-copy. But you really do need to look at the 9/1 version. Anything with the footer date of 9/1/2024 is the current version, and that's what you should rely on. I think at this stage, we really want to appreciate all of your time that you've spent on the training session today, and any questions you've asked help to make us all stronger. And reminder again about the askjennyme@hud.gov. But thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you very much for our presenters today as well. Have a good rest of the afternoon.
Heather, it does look like we had one other question.
Perfect.
And it says, is next week's training a complete repeat of today? So yes, the material will be exactly the same. But however, you are welcome to attend again. And if you have additional questions, we will be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. I think we're good. Thanks, team.
Thanks, Heather.
The chat has been updated with the survey. Please make sure that you complete the survey before you disconnect.